All right, so like Steve said, my name is Emily Randall. I work with Chick-fil-A. I'm from Atlanta, and I've been with Chick-fil-A for about 3.5, a little over, years. And I lead all the communications with our known customers, and that a huge part of that is our loyalty program, Chick-fil-A One. And within that is our entire email program. So really excited to share with you guys. And let's just jump in. So I'm going to tell you first just a little bit about me. This is my beau. This is Drew. We have been married for about 6 years, and he's back home in Atlanta. And we met at UGA. It's a little sore. I was like, I don't know that I want to say UGA right now because it's still, we're coming out of a little bit of a heartbreak in football season. Gotham back there, and I decided we were not going to talk about football over the next couple days. So anyway, that's Drew. And then these are our two little minions back at home. On the left is Reese, and he's 2 years and 9 months. And Finley on the right is 9 months. So I'm going to start planning our first joint birthday party. So we'll see how many years they let me do that. The next person I want to talk about is Truett, Kathy. So this is the founder of Chick-fil-A. This is a picture of him in front of the Dwarf House Grill, and he started that in 1946. So this is essentially the first version of Chick-fil-A. And that was in Atlanta as well, in a little town called Hateville. And it was super tiny. The reason it was called the Dwarf House is because it was so small. It had 10 stools, 4 tables. He knew everybody that came in the restaurant. And him and his wife, Jeanette, lived right behind the restaurant. It was like gravel parking lot, so they could hear people driving up and walking into the restaurant, so they'd run over. It was 24 hours. So just very small town feel. And he knew every person that came into the restaurant. And he got to know them, he got to know their stories, and he said, hey, this is actually good for business. They keep coming back, they tell people about the restaurant. So this is the heart of who Chick-fil-A is. And he actually said, we're not even in the chicken business here. He doesn't consider us in the chicken business, we're in the people business. And so we think a lot about hospitality, we think about going the second mile for our customers. Hopefully you've experienced that if you've been to a Chick-fil-A. Today we are much bigger. We have about 2,300 locations across the country. And so it gets a little bit harder to know all of our customers by name. But what we have rallied around is it kind of stems from what Truett said. And we all say, when you know someone's story, you can care for them personally. And so the team really thinks about, hey, what are all of our marketing touch points, and how are we caring for people personally through each of those touch points? We'll think about each of those touch points as, is this a deposit on the customer relationship, or is this a withdrawal? And so the story I'm going to kind of share with you guys today is our journey of taking a look at our email program. And about 1.5 years ago, we said, hey, this is actually a little bit more of a withdrawal. We're doing this batch and blast approach with our email program. It was pretty messy. And so we said, hey, we actually need to fix this in order to start adding value to that relationship with our customers. And so this story is really one of becoming modern marketers as well. So I don't know that we would have considered ourselves modern marketers even a few years ago. So we're really learning what that looks like. It's a journey. We are definitely still on it. When Steve asked me to talk, I'm like, I think more than half the people in this room are way further along than we are, but I'll share what we've learned so far and what our journey has looked like. So about 1.5 years ago, we took a look at the program, and there were 3 key challenges that we were up against. And so I'll walk you through what those challenges were, and then the solutions that we identified for each one of those. And then I'll talk a little bit about what the program looks like today. So the first challenge that we were up against was our databases were all separate, and it was really difficult, impossible, to audit any kind of messaging frequency, capitalize on any kind of personalization opportunities. So we had this email insiders group, which is a pretty large group. It was about 6 million people. And that was your typical sign up for our newsletter, national email program. Then we had A-List, which that was basically a local loyalty program, very inconsistent. Each operator could decide if they wanted to do it, what it would look like, so very inconsistent. And then, but it also had emails associated with it. They could send out emails on their own. We were sending a few from the brand. Cal Calendar was another program that had email associated with it. So that was something that a customer could purchase, a calendar that somebody could purchase at the beginning of the year. It would have free items that we would give to them each month throughout the year. And so we would send emails to remind them or let them know what the treat was that month. And then we also have recently launched Chick-fil-A One. So Chick-fil-A One is our national loyalty program. And so there was overlap with all those different groups that I've already covered. And so we said, hey, let's roll this up under Chick-fil-A One. We believe that this is the key to actually knowing our customers. And so we had transaction data. We knew that this was going to grow over time. And so we said, hey, let's hang our hat there. Let's focus there and start to fold some of these up under that. So the solution there was the consolidation of our email databases. That was a hard decision because, like I said, especially email insiders, there were 6 million people there, and we knew we were not going to convert all of those people to Chick-fil-A One. So that was one of those decisions of, hey, is it going to be worth it to potentially let those people go? And so we said, yes, it is. We believe it's worth it. So A-List and Cal Calendar, we folded up under Chick-fil-A One. So we automatically grandfathered them in. And then for email insiders, what the visual is at the bottom is just basically this 5-touch conversion series or sunset series for that program. So, hey, this is Chick-fil-A One, here are the benefits, here's a free treat, your treat is expiring, things like that. So we did the 5 touches and then we decided to officially sunset that program. The second challenge that we were up against was our visual design was super inconsistent. One, we had a bunch of different email programs that we were running. 2, it was under 3 different teams. So that was, it was a pretty clear solution that we needed to just do this visual design overhaul. And so we worked with our partner Brightwave on this, and we did an entire overhaul. We also internally folded everything up under one team, so there were not multiple different teams working on email anymore. I say 3 teams, and it's funny because like our IT team would be like, hey, we need an email, I'm gonna create it. So there were probably multiple more teams working on email. But anyway, so it folds up, so it's all within Chick-fil-A One. You'll see in the nav, or in the header, it talks about Chick-fil-A One, so you can quick link to your profile, you can see how many treats you have in your account, and manage it that way. And then the rest of the template, most of the time they will look like this, but it's pretty dynamic. We'll serve up dynamic content. And then we really think a lot about using that real estate to extend existing content. So we have the Chicken Wire, which is our online blog, basically, where it has long-form content, and then we'll think about, okay, well, how do we chop that up into bite-sized pieces, into email, into social, and in other places as well. We have TV spots actually running right now that is an extension of some of our Chicken Wire content. So we really try to distribute that across all of our channels. But then we'll have other, highlighting our national campaigns, certain products, things like that. And then the third challenge that we were up against was our email service provider was cloud-based. And we had challenges balancing PII with personalization and segmentation capabilities. So we needed something that was going to be on-premise. And so we decided to partner with MessageGears, and that has been that was a huge partnership with our IT folks. And so we went through a whole set of capabilities and requirements that we needed, that we were looking for, and decided to partner with MessageGears. So that has allowed us to actually start to take, be able to use the opportunities to actually personalize some of our emails. So today, it's about a year and a half later, a little more. Put your big boy pants on and get out there, right? So it's like, okay, how do we actually do this, and what does this look like? It's, again, like I said, it's not perfect, but here's some of how we approach it. One, we have about 3 times the email database that we had about a year and a half ago. So we have definitely seen growth. A big part of that is because of Chick-fil-A One, our membership program. And then we think a lot about balancing scale and personalization. So how do you take, like Chick-fil-A is, one of our differentiators is local ownership. And so we want to be able to take stories that are happening personally and then highlight those in email at scale. And then we also want to be able to take stories that are at scale, like our national campaigns, and then personalize those. So that's a tough balance that we're still trying to figure out. And then we also are balancing local email. So this is pretty interesting. We do let our operators email directly. They email their customers. These are people who transact with their restaurant, so they don't have access to everybody in our membership program, but anybody who transacts with their restaurant, they can email. So we, on the brand side, give them templates, and we give them the tools to be able to send out those emails. We share best practices, and then each template, like you can see, is just one single message. So it's not the content blocks, that treatment that we have on the brand side, but it'll be one message, and then you can see elements like they can load in their picture, so you can actually see their face in there, they can put their signature in there, they can tweak the copy. So sometimes it's about a limited time offer, like our peppermint chocolate chip milkshake, or it could be information about, hey, we're closing for renovation. And then they can also send really personal emails to even just one person if they want to. And we know you just had a baby. Here's a treat on us. So they can decide how they want to do that. And then we also balance that from an air cover standpoint from the brand with 2 emails a month. And this is kind of the treatment that I showed you before. And so we'll send, we have all kinds of different messages flowing into this one. And what's nice is that we can see the people that they have emailed, and then I think where our biggest opportunity is on the brand side is thinking about the entire audience that doesn't fall into one of their basically local CRM systems. So what does win-back look like? What does re-engagement look like? That's where we can uniquely help on the brand side that the operators don't have access to. And then here's an example of what a wireframe looks like for an email. We're pulling in multiple different data sources. So we have our customer profile data, we have transaction data, and then location. We have a lot of other sources as well. So it'll kind of tweak, we'll tweak the message or the creative based on where somebody is in their journey, things like that. So this purple content block, for example, had 5 different options that we could plug in based on if somebody had never mobile ordered, if they've scanned and not mobile ordered, if they mobile order all the time. So it just, we would tweak that depending on where they were within taking a mobile order action. And then from a results standpoint, well, first we start out with at least 32 base segments per email. We also have at least 500 different versions, sometimes much more than that. And then from a results standpoint, we have seen about 5 times increase in overall membership since we started this. So email is certainly not the only driver of that, but we have seen email being the biggest driver of keeping somebody engaged or re-engaging them. And then we've also seen about over 20% increase from a conversion standpoint for people who receive the email versus the control group. So then I don't have this up here, but from an attribution standpoint, we are able to measure that. It's incredible what you can tie email, like action in email, to when it comes to sales. And I come from a background of more social media than anything, and we can't tell those types of stories in social, so it's really incredible that we are able to start to share these stories of success and actually measure attribution in this channel. And then really what's next for us is kind of going back to the basics. I think somebody talked about it earlier, but just seeing people as people, right? It's not, and you can't think of them as an email address. It's way easier said than done, but we want to continue thinking about, okay, well, what's important to our customers, continuing to research to understand what is it really that they want from us, not jumping on technology just to jump on new technology. It's really easy to get caught up in the new bright, shiny thing, right? And for us, it feels like we're still learning, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for us out there, but I think kind of going back to the basics of just who are these people and how do we organize our program in the right way has been a huge step in the right direction for us. And then with that, I think that's all. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I always have loads of questions myself, but let's kick off with your questions. What questions do you have of Emily in this program? Yep. And by the way, as you when we're bringing the mic, please stand. Tell us who you are and who you're with, so we get to know you.
No, it's an easy one. It's an easy one, I promise. Craig Swerdloff, Traverse Data. So you talked about attribution, and I'm just hoping that you could speak a little bit more about how you handle attribution from in-store sales back to email.
Yeah, so it's a close partnership with our CMI, our Customer Marketing Insights group. They are along for the entire email journey. So when we're starting, like when we write the brief for an email, we have this hypothesis, we're A/B testing. They're along for that entire ride, and then they're the ones who have access to the data. So they partner really closely with Brightwave to actually measure that. So we've taken, like we can measure, it's all because of the app. Like it's, we'll look at mobile orders and we'll look at catering orders, things like that. So we're not able to measure everything. So if somebody doesn't use the app, we have rough attribution and rounded, but not exact. But then from a mobile ordering and catering standpoint, that's what we've been able to measure. So.
Back here.
Hi, Luke Kintai, head of publishing with Intel. I love the TV campaign you guys are currently running with featuring all the local customer spotlights. I was just curious, was that integrated into your email program? And I'm assuming maybe did that help like source some of those stories? And if not, how did you guys find those stories? I'm just curious to know that.
Yeah, email, it's a great question. Email did not help us source the stories. Really, that comes from social media was probably more of a driver of the stories, but then paired with stories just directly from operators. So we just reached out to all of our operators and we said, hey, we know you have these incredible stories of connections between team members and customers, so just help us. And we just set up a separate internal email address for them to send those to. But as far as the extension of the campaign, yes, we have shared those stories within email. It's interesting because they haven't actually performed as well as what we thought that they would. So I think we want to dive into that a little bit to understand, well, is there something we could do to improve those results of that particular content, or is it just not the right content for email? But the other thing too is that whole campaign, if y'all haven't seen it, the whole spirit around it, the whole concept is the little things. And we talk a lot about it's the little things that make a pretty big difference. And we see our customers talking about that all the time. Hey, oh my gosh, they brought me, they brought the high chair over from my kid to sit in instead of me having to go get it, like tiny little things of going the extra mile. So when we think about how that extends into email, it may not be as literal as showing that exact story in our emails, but what we have started to talk about is what are the little things about email that could say, oh, that was nice. And so like, for example, we're talking about our unsubscribe experience right now. If somebody unsubscribes or hits unsubscribe, they might have to go through a few different clicks. Are you sure you want to unsubscribe? That's not right for our brand. And so what we've talked about is how do we make it as easy as possible for our customers to unsubscribe. If they said they want to unsubscribe, let them unsubscribe. And you know, we might have a separate messaging that hopefully makes them decide to not unsubscribe, but it's just one of those things where it's like we just want to make it as simple as possible for customers to do what they have said that they want to do. So that's really more about how we're extending it, is the little things about email that just make it an easier experience.
You said 500 plus versions?
Versions.
Tell us a little bit about what those versions entail. What kind of creative are we talking about? What are the big variables there? You're going to those 500 versions.
I mean, the wireframe kind of showed a little bit about that, but I mean, we'll pull in every single portion of the email has a ton of different options that we could serve up depending on who you are. So we'll plug in your name. We might do something about your location. If it's your birthday, we'll have a birthday message. If you were a Cal Calendar member, we've been finishing that up. It's retired, so it's not going to continue into 2019, but we'll share about the Cal Calendar. We'll let you know about how many different treats you have in your account. We'll let you know how close you are to your next reward, things like that. So, yeah, I mean, all of that put together takes us to at least 500 versions for each one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm Heather with AERP, and just wondering, with all of those versions, what is your QC process? Are you looking at every single version? Because it gives me agita thinking about it.
Same. Like, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to review every single email as it would appear to a customer. We look at every single content block that could show up based on the query that we've written. And then we'll review, our IT team reviews all the different queries and the segments and things like that. So that goes through multiple layers, and then the creative for each content block goes through multiple layers. But reviewing an email, a full email as it would appear to a customer, does not happen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of QC, I wanted to talk more about when we talk, one of the most fascinating parts of this is the coordination and empowerment with the local owners, and that you've essentially got two sets of voices coming to your customers. Yes. So I'm curious about the coordination of that, especially when it comes to cadence. Are you able to calibrate with the local provider so you know how many national versus local emails are hitting a customer?
Yeah, it's a great question. Right now, no. That relationship with our operators, there's a huge amount of trust. Some of them, though, email a lot, and some don't. So it's really, it can be inconsistent. We give them best practices. We do webinars with them. Each one of them has a restaurant marketing director, so it really is the RMD that's actually deploying all of those. So we'll do webinars with them. We'll share best practices. But right now, it's not Big Brother. We don't want to set limits for them. We're trying to give them the tools that we believe that would make them successful in this and what would be right for the customer. That said, we are exploring what suppression might look like after a certain customer gets a certain number of emails in a set amount of time. So that would potentially roll out, but right now
what are you learning about the relative effectiveness of the national versus the local voice? I'm really fascinated by the idea of the power of the local voice.
Yeah.
And what you're learning about what they're better able to do in terms of marketing, what sets of goals they're more effective at, and what you're more effective at.
Yeah. They, from a local standpoint, they know their customers better than we will. So we have access to so much data, but at the end of the day, they're the ones who have these, most of the time, more personal relationships with their customers. So we want to continue that, and that, again, it goes back to Truett of, hey, I want to know and I want to be able to engage directly with my customers. And there's just stories that they can tell that we can't tell at the national level. So even just like we're closing for renovation, or I know that you guys just went through this big life event, and I want to congratulate you and load a reward onto your app, things like that. That we think that that's the secret sauce of Chick-fil-A. We're not a brand that is just always going to come from the national level. We actually want to do that as little as possible. But it is, I mean, it's a tough balance with the operators, but I I think where we can uniquely come in, a lot of the conversation that we have with our operators right now is, hey, you do what you do really well. We want to give you the tools to do that. But then there's certain points at which it doesn't make sense for you to be in contact with these customers, and that's when we can uniquely come in. And so I gave the example of like win-back series, things like that we can do on the brand side, because we can see what these people's journeys have been, where data is much more important, where we can uniquely do that the operators can't. So I think it's a give and take for sure with that relationship.
Another one back here.
Scott Cohen, 1-800-CONTACTS. I assume you didn't go from 0 to 500 versions overnight. Can you speak to the incrementality of the program building and any sort of test and learn strategies that you employed along the way to get there?
Yeah, it's a good question. We did do a pretty big jump. It wasn't, I don't know that I would say it was a super gradual. I'm trying to think about how many versions we started with. It was a good number. It was not 500, but we said, hey, let's just start with basic, like we'll start plugging in from a personalization standpoint, name, and then activity that you've done within the app or how close you are to a reward, things like that. So that was where we started. Then we started pulling in geo and more localized messaging. We have market stratification that has rolled out on our media side. So we started to plug that in, but that was not at the beginning. So I would say, the first step was tying it to app activity. And then we've just started, gradually rolling it out. But from a test and learn standpoint, we're constantly doing that. I think, every single email has some sort of A/B test. So depends on what we're trying to learn.
Let me wrap with a more holistic question and bring us back to the premise of the presentation, which is know your customer and the premise of the brand.
Yeah.
After all of this, what do you know about what your customer really wants from a major QSR brand? Do they really want you to be their buddy? Do they really want just the best deal that will save them on a chicken basket over the weekend? What do you know now about your customer that you didn't know at the beginning?
So one, we've seen a huge spike in engagement when it comes to our emails. The piece where I talked about we extend our content, especially from that longer form chicken wire content, adding that in and actually sharing some more relevant content based on what our customers what that audience has engaged with in the past, we've seen a huge spike in engagement there. So for us, it's kind of this balance of, I think from a QSR, like anytime that there's a deal or anything like that, that's table stakes. Like that's number one, what they want to hear from us. But when we can add in that additional content that's more relevant for them, we've seen engagement spike even more. So I think it's that balance. We're never gonna probably send just a content email. It's kind of that balance of really basic rewards, table stakes type stuff with more of the long form content.